The conference hall on Station Uvrex hung in the void like a monument to optimism. Too much optimism, if you ask me. Ambassador Kelris of the Tharnov Collective stood before the assembled delegates, his 4 eyes gleaming with what I can only describe as weaponized sincerity. I'd seen that look before, usually right before someone tried to sell me defective plasma coils. Today, Kelris announced, his voice reverberating through the translators, we sign a treaty that will reshape the galaxy. The humans have agreed to our terms. Peace, at long last. I couldn't help but notice the human delegation in the corner. 3 of them. Just 3. Commander Victoria Stone sat in the center, flanked by a tactical advisor named Marcus Webb and a young diplomatic aide, Emma Kovacs. Stone's face was unreadable, which should have been my first clue. Humans are terrible at hiding their emotions. Terrible. They laugh when they're nervous, cry when they're happy, and somehow manage to look guilty even when they're innocent. But Stone, she sat there like a statue carved from strategic calculation. The treaty itself was a masterpiece of Tharnov engineering. We'd worked on it for 16 cycles, carefully crafting each clause to limit human expansion, restrict their military production, and essentially box them into their own corner of the galaxy. The humans had lost the border wars after all. They were in no position to negotiate, or so we thought. Commander Stone, Kelris continued, extending the signing stylus with a flourish that would have made a theatrical performer jealous. If you would do us the honor. Stone rose slowly, too slowly. She walked to the podium with the kind of measured pace that made my dorsal ridges itch. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. She took the stylus, paused, then smiled. Oh no. Humans should never smile like that. Before I sign, Stone said, her voice cutting through the ceremonial atmosphere like a thermal blade through butter, I have a question for Ambassador Kelris. The room went quiet. You could have heard a microbe sneeze. By all means, Kelris replied, his confidence unwavering. Poor fool. This treaty, Clause 7, subsection 12. It restricts human vessels to a maximum of 40 per sector. Correct. And Clause 9 limits our defensive installations to stations no larger than 3 kilometers in diameter. Also correct. Kelris was getting impatient now. I could see it in the way his neck frills twitched. Stone's smile widened. Fascinating. Tell me, Ambassador, when exactly did you conduct your last survey of human space? The question hung there like a gravitational anomaly. Kelris blinked, all 4 eyes, one after another. That is, we have continuous monitoring, of course. Of course, Stone echoed, her tone dripping with something that made my translators struggle to find the right word. Mockery. No, something sharper. So you're aware of the construction we've completed in the Tana sector. Construction. One of the Tharnov military advisors, General Prex, leaned forward in his seat. Stone gestured to Webb, who activated a holographic display. What appeared made 3 of the delegates actually gasp. The Vrend representative looked like he might faint. 16 stations. Each one exactly 2.99 kilometers in diameter. Perfectly within treaty specifications. Surrounding them, clusters of vessels, each grouping numbering exactly 39 ships per designated zone. You see, Stone continued, her voice taking on an almost educational tone. We read the treaty very carefully. Very, very carefully. Clause 7 says 40 vessels per sector. It doesn't specify how we define a sector. We chose to define our sectors rather generously. Small sectors. Very small. Hundreds of them. Kelris's skin had gone from its usual purple to a shade I'd never seen before. Somewhere between panic and nausea. As for the stations, Stone went on, clearly enjoying herself now. 2.99 kilometers is quite spacious when you engineer efficiently. Each one houses approximately 12,000 personnel, full manufacturing capabilities, and enough firepower to sterilize a small moon. But don't worry. They're all perfectly legal. This is a mockery of the spirit of the agreement, Kelris sputtered. Stone's expression didn't change. Sane. Tolok. Ambassador, with all due respect, we lost the war. We accepted your terms. We followed every single letter of this treaty. Every single letter. Is it our fault that you were imprecise in your language? I watched Marcus Webb fight to keep a straight face. He was failing. A small smirk kept threatening to break through his professional demeanor. General Prex stood abruptly. This is unacceptable. We demand immediate compliance with the intent of... The intent? Stone interrupted. And now her voice went cold. Ice cold. The kind of cold that happens in deep space when all the stars go out. General, let me tell you about intent. You intended to crush us, to reduce humanity to a minor player, confined to our home systems, dependent on Tharnoff goodwill for survival. You intended to make us irrelevant. She leaned forward, palms flat on the podium. We intended to survive. We intended to rebuild, and we intended to make absolutely certain that you'd never ever underestimate us again. The silence that followed could have suffocated planets. Emma Kovacs chose that moment to speak up, her young voice cutting through the tension. If I may add, ambassadors, we've also been very busy with our education initiatives. Clause 15, which limits our military academy enrollment. We've complied fully. However, it says nothing about civilian engineering schools, strategic studies programs, or the rather robust continuing education courses we've established. Turns out, when you have a population that's really motivated to not be conquered again, they get creative with curriculum development. I wanted to laugh. I really did. The sheer audacity of it. The humans had taken our carefully constructed cage and turned it into a blueprint for expansion. Kelris seemed to age several cycles in the span of seconds. What? What do you want? Stone picked up the stylus again, twirling it between her fingers. Want, Ambassador, I'm going to sign your treaty. Every word of it. We'll honor it completely, just like we have been for the past 16 cycles while you congratulated yourselves on defeating humanity. She signed with a flourish that would have made Kelris proud. Done. The treaty is official, binding, permanent. She set down the stylus and straightened her uniform. Of course, she added, almost as an afterthought. If you'd like to renegotiate terms, we're open to discussions. Fair discussions. Equal discussions. The kind where you don't assume we're too stupid to read the fine print or too broken to rebuild. Marcus Webb stood, gathering the human delegation's materials. As they prepared to leave, Stone turned back one final time. Oh, an ambassador. One more thing. That fleet you detected on your sensors last week near the outer rim, the one your intelligence officers couldn't quite classify. Kelris nodded weakly. Stone's smile returned. Full force. Training exercise. Perfectly legal under Clause 23. We'll be conducting more of those. Many more. I hope the noise doesn't disturb anyone. And with that, the human delegation walked out, leaving behind a room full of the galaxy's most powerful beings staring at a treaty they'd spent 16 cycles crafting, realizing they'd just handed humanity the keys to their own resurgence. I sat there watching Kelris's face cycle through 12 different shades of regret. Peace treaty? Sure. They'd signed it. They'd honor it. Every single word. The question nobody had thought to ask was who actually won. 3 cycles later, I found myself back on Station Uvrex. Not by choice, mind you. The Tharnov Collective had called an emergency session of the Galactic Council, and as a junior analyst for the Vryn Commerce Guild, I got volunteered. Lucky me. The same conference hall, the same delegates. But the atmosphere, completely different. Where optimism once hung in the air, now there was something closer to desperation mixed with a healthy dose of paranoia. Ambassador Kelris looked like he'd aged 20 cycles. His frills drooped, his eyes had lost their gleam, and he moved with the defeated shuffle of someone who'd played strategic chess against a master and lost every single piece. Commander Stone sat in the exact same seat as before, still flanked by Webb and Kovacs, still wearing that expression of calculated neutrality that I'd learned to fear. This council convenes, Kelris began, his voice lacking its former theatrical flair, to address the situation, regarding human expansion activities. Situation. What a delightfully vague word for absolute strategic disaster. General Prex took over, activating a star map that made half the council lean forward. Red markers indicated human presence. There were hundreds of them, possibly thousands. They'd spread across 17 sectors like some kind of particularly aggressive fungus. In the past 3 cycles, Prex explained, his tone bitter enough to corrode hull plating, humanity has established outposts in territory we believe to be under our protection. They've negotiated independent trade agreements with 14 minor species. They've constructed, and I quote, educational facilities on 9 frontier worlds. Educational facilities that look suspiciously like military bases, added another Tharnov delegate. Stone raised a hand politely. May I respond? Telris waved weakly. He'd given up fighting. Everything we've done, Stone said, standing with that same measured grace, is completely within treaty bounds. Clause 18 allows for civilian settlement expansion. Clause 22 permits educational and cultural exchange programs. Clause 30 permits defensive installations on any world where local government requests our presence. Local governments you've clearly influenced. Prex snapped. Stone's eyebrow arched. Just one. The effect was devastating. General, are you suggesting that these sovereign species lack the capacity to make their own decisions, that they couldn't possibly choose to align with humanity of their own free will? Because that sounds dangerously close to the attitude that started the border wars in the first place. Webb coughed to cover what I was 90% certain was a laugh. The Vrin representative, Ambassador Tex, finally spoke up. Commander Stone, while your technical compliance is noted, surely you can see how this appears from our perspective. The treaty was designed to prevent exactly this kind of expansion. Stone turned to face Thex directly. Ambassador, with respect, the treaty was designed to cage us, to ensure humanity remained weak, isolated and dependent. You just didn't account for the fact that humans are exceptionally good at one particular thing. And what's that? The X asked. Spite. The word hung there like a tactical nuke. Emma Kovacs stood, her youth somehow making her words hit harder. If I may expand on the commander's point, you spent 16 cycles crafting a treaty that restricted our military, limited our expansion, controlled our economy. You built a prison. But here's what you forgot. She tapped her datapad, bringing up historical records. Humans have been building things out of restrictions for millennia. Give us rules, we find loopholes. Build us walls, we dig tunnels. Lock us down, we innovate. It's not malice. It's not even strategy. It's just who we are. We're stubborn. Annoyingly, persistently, infuriatingly stubborn. Marcus Webb finally joined in, his tactical mind evident in every word. Take the 40 vessel per sector limit. Brilliant restriction, really. Except you defined sector using old Thernov administrative boundaries. Boundaries that made sense 200 cycles ago but haven't been updated since. We simply proposed new administrative divisions based on current traffic patterns and resource distribution. The Galactic Navigation Committee approved them. Unanimously, I might add. Because you bribed them. Someone shouted from the back. We made generous donations to their infrastructure improvement fund. Webb corrected smoothly. Completely legal. Clause 47 specifically permits financial contributions to galactic administrative bodies. We were just being good citizens. I watched Kelris sink deeper into his chair. This was torture. Beautifully executed, perfectly legal torture. Stone wasn't finished. Let's talk about those defensive installations the general mentioned. The ones on frontier worlds. Did you know that the Kelvin species requested our presence after 3 Tharnov survey ships entered their system without permission last cycle? Or that the Myrix colonies asked for human educators after your mining operations contaminated 2 of their water sources? She pulled up documentation. Real documentation. Verified complaints, formal requests, legal contracts. You want to know why species are choosing to work with humanity? It's not manipulation. It's not bribery. It's because when they ask for help, we actually help. When they request protection, we protect them. When they want trade deals, we negotiate fairly. Revolutionary concepts, apparently. Prex slammed his appendage on the table. This is propaganda. You're painting the collective as villains. No, Stone replied quietly. You're doing that yourselves. We're just providing alternatives. The room erupted. Delegates arguing. Accusations flying, translators working overtime to keep up with the chaos. Through it all, the human delegation sat calmly, watching the council tear itself apart. Finally, Kelris raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes to achieve. What? He said slowly, tiredly. Do you want, really want, no games, no clever word play? What would it take for humanity to ease these expansion activities? Stone exchanged glances with Webb and Kovacs. Some silent communication passed between them. Then she stood, walked to the podium and placed both hands on it. The same gesture as before, but this time her expression softened. Just slightly. Ambassador, we want what we've always wanted. Respect, recognition. A seat at the table as equals, not conquered subjects. We want the freedom to grow, to explore, to build relationships with other species without every move being scrutinized as potential aggression. She paused, letting that sink in. We want you to stop treating humanity like a problem to be managed and start treating us like partners to be respected. Kelrus looked around the room, seeing the same realization dawning on every face. The treaty hadn't failed because of loopholes or clever lawyers. It had failed because it was built on a foundation of condescension and fear. If we renegotiate, Kelrus said slowly, if we approach this as equals, would humanity be willing to establish genuine cooperation? Stone smiled. A real smile this time, not the predatory one from 3 cycles ago, something almost warm. Masatter, we've been waiting for you to ask that question. We've already prepared proposals for mutual defense agreements, joint exploration initiatives, and collaborative trade frameworks. All we needed was for you to stop assuming you knew what was best for us and actually ask what we wanted. She pulled out a datapad, sliding it across to Kelrus. That's our counteroffer. Read it. Take your time. No tricks. No hidden clauses. Just honest terms between equals. As the council adjourned, I watched the human delegation leave. Webb was grinning openly now. Kovacs looked relieved. Stone maintained her professional composure, but there was satisfaction in her walk. I'd learned something important over these past cycles. The peace treaty wasn't a lie. The humans had honored every word, they just forced everyone else to honor the truth underneath it all. Humanity wasn't defeated. They were patient, clever, resilient, and they just taught the galaxy's greatest powers a lesson in humility wrapped in perfect legal compliance. Terrifying species. Really. Absolutely terrifying. But I respected them for it.